advice or to encourage the students to pursue their dreams. So I see that we have more people waiting in the waiting room.
Okay, I will let them in.
Yeah, I see there are several people in there, so I'll wait a minute so we have more students with us.
I am trying to let them in, but
I see here 15 participants and we are only 6 now. So I have a button that says invite. I can invite them. Is that okay?
yes, please feel free to do that.
Okay. Um, hmm. It gives me a room system.
I think we have 15 altogether in the room.
In the, well, I only see, oh, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't scroll all the way down.
No, no problem.
All right, so we do have people in the room. Perfect. Yes, so I'll then continue with the presentation. First, I would like to give a brief introduction of my research and a bit of my trajectory leading to my current position. This is a snapshot we took a couple of weeks ago at one of our group meetings on Zoom with some of my current graduate students. In the past, I graduated 17 PhD students and 21 master students since joining Virginia Tech, which was in 2003. So I'm currently the director of the Therramechanics Multibody and Vehicle Systems Laboratory in the Mechanical Engineering Department. I was born and I grew up in Romania. I graduated from the Polytechnic Institute in Bucharest in 1991. I worked for a year for a company in Bucharest as a design engineer, and then came to the US for my graduate studies. I try to juggle multiple hats in the same time, going to grad school and raising a family and working in academia and being involved in several professional societies. Couple of them are named here. I'm also currently the president of the International Society for Terrain Vehicle Systems, one of the closest to my areas of research. So it's been, I am very grateful for everything, and also looking forward to what's next from this point on. So I did mention I came to the US to pursue my graduate degrees at the University of Iowa. I came in December of '92 in a master's program, started that in January of '93, got my master's in '95, and continued on with my PhD with the same advisor. And graduated with that in 2000. Between 95 and 2000, I had 2 children, moved 4 times across 3 states, taught part-time and full-time at Michigan Tech, and bought a house, sold a house. It was a very challenging time. Actually, we didn't sell the house until we moved to Blacksburg, the house in Michigan. But anyway, there were several events happening in the same time with my graduate career. So I'm not telling this to brag about my background. I'm just telling it to you to let you know that everybody's trajectory is different, and there is no ideal timeline for you to finish a degree, or if you're taking more or less, you fit in something else. That's your trajectory, and that's the way that you can pursue all of your dreams. I tell my students that life doesn't wait for something to end, for something else to happen. So you have to take care of your personal life and your career and everything else in the same time. You have to learn how to do that and go at your best pace with that. Since 2003, I joined Virginia Tech as an assistant professor, moved up the ranks to the current named professorship position I'm holding in the department, and my being the associate department head for graduate studies. I've been in that position for 5 years now. Just a few words about my areas of research, and I'd be happy to get into more details if this is of interest today. I'm primarily working in multi-body dynamics, vehicle dynamics, and thermomechanics. Tires and track models fit either in vehicle dynamics or maybe multi-body dynamics, definitely thermomechanics, which is vehicle terrain interaction. But I listed that as a separate topic, since we really have a lot of research being conducted in that area. The multi-body dynamic systems is the most theoretical aspect of my work. We do modeling, simulation, uncertainty quantification and propagation, parameter estimation, including real-time parameter estimation, sensitivity analysis, and design optimization of systems described by differential algebraic equations, and systems described by ordinary differential equations plus inequalities, such as, for example, in the case of the bipedal robot, you see there where you have discontinuities in the motion of the system with every step being taken by the robot. And we may analyze, for example, the sensitivity of the energy used by the robot between point A and point B based on the effect of the length of the legs, let's say. You have a couple of visualizations here of some of our work being done in tire modeling and tracked vehicles modeling. They are developed from scratch, basically from fundamentals. Of course, for tires, you always have to have some experimental data. So a part of that model was parameterized with data obtained from experimental work. Thermomechanics is an area that might not be extremely popular. I'm surprised it is not, because I think we actually have more off-road vehicles than we have on-road vehicles, considering that everything that is being used in agriculture, construction, mining, planetary exploration, military vehicles, all sorts of rovers, etc. They are all operating in unprepared conditions. I have a big emphasis in my group in understanding and analyzing the performance of a given vehicle in its environment. And that could be on soft soil, on sand, on snow, on ice, over rough terrain, obstacles, etc. Obviously, in order to do that, you first have to develop, the good models for your tires or for your track vehicles or whatever vehicle it is. But you also have to develop a model for the environment, for the soil, for the snow, for the ice, and for then the interaction between them. So this is pretty much covering some of my work. I've done some work in railroad dynamics, looking at wheel-rail friction, looking at suspension of freight trains, and currently pursuing some collaborative work in autonomy, especially for unprepared terrains. Let us now move on to the topic of today. I wanted to start with a disclaimer. I know that we have a lot of different ways of conducting the qualifying and the prelim exam in the College of Engineering. And my perspective comes from my personal experience in the mechanical engineering department. I would be very happy to try and provide advice if you're telling me about a specific situation in another department, what would be the best solution for such and such situation. But again, I will focus my presentation on how we do things in ME. And I hope that this would be relevant to most of you, ideally to all of you. All right, so let's start with the beginning. You succeeded in being accepted at Virginia Tech. Eventually you got your master's already, or maybe you start your PhD right after your bachelor. In ME, we typically now accept students without a master's in a master's program, but we allow the students to transfer to a direct PhD as soon as they pass the qualifying exam. So now that you, let's say, just have been accepted, do you know what's the next step? What are you going to do? What's the timeline? Are you familiar with the specifics of your department? Are you familiar with the graduate school requirements? These are all questions that I'm pretty sure at some point in time, and I would assume you're all at different levels in your graduate studies, you may have asked yourself. And if you're new to Virginia Tech, I hope that some of the things I'm saying would be very helpful. If you've been here for a while, I hope you'll excuse me if I'm telling you just basic things that you already know. So before you even come to Virginia Tech, or if not during your first semester, we strongly encourage you to identify an advisor. It's really important to have someone with whom you start your research early on. With the advisor, you can also consult on the courses that you'll be taking that first semester. You can also discuss about possible funding sources. Now this is, or could be a tricky aspect. I encourage the students who contact me to try and identify. I know that funding is important, but I think it's even more important that you do enjoy what you are working on and that you and your advisor work well together. I don't necessarily recommend accepting to work for someone just because they have money, but the topic is not really what you want. And really, that's not maybe the best relationship that you can have with an advisor. So take your time, be careful, and if you find the ideal advisor, even if funding is not immediately available in the form of a graduate research assistantship, if things go very well, I'm pretty sure most of the faculty will do the best that they can to secure funding for your research topic for the next semesters and years. There are also other opportunities. Try to look for everything that's out there, all the fellowships that you are eligible for, or any funding from your department, or possibly from other departments if there are none in your department available. So it's very important to take care of these things early on. And in case that you do not identify that advisor in the first semester, you try to talk with people, they are busy, didn't reply to your emails, whatever the situation was, strongly recommend scheduling a meeting with the graduate program director. In our department, I meet with all the students who don't have an advisor, and I pretty much act as their advisor in terms of helping them select courses, or I may recommend them talking with one of our trust area leaders in order to get more specific advice in an area of research that's outside of my expertise. Basically, that first semester, your duties are to do well in what you're doing, do well in your classes, to keep up the GPA, do well in your duties if they are GRAs or GTAs. If you don't have any of these, try to look for that advisor, the funding, and opportunities for research. All right, so time flies, and we are now in the second semester. You got accustomed to the first semester at Virginia Tech or the first semester in your PhD program. It's now time to really sit down with your advisor and plan your academic trajectory. To me, that means I sit down with my students and we try to identify, if we don't yet have a more narrow research direction. If we have that, that's perfect. We plan out the goals and the tasks to the best that we can. And we decide, how often we are going to meet. We have the group meeting. Occasionally we may cancel one or another depending on urgency situations or other circumstances, or we may have more meetings obviously if needed. This is the time to identify your committee and prepare your plan of study. We strongly encourage our PhD students to have the plan of study submitted by the end of the first year, and the master students to have it submitted by the end of the first semester. So now that you are well established and you know your course ahead of you, and you decided you want to pursue a PhD, you need to start preparing for your qualifier exam. I think I have it somewhere later in my slides. We don't necessarily encourage you to take it the first semester because you have to deal with all the adjustments, but nobody prevents you from doing so. Our qualifier exam is usually at the end of October, so that gives you a couple of months to study. But typically, the second semester and third semester are the best to take and pass the qualifier exams. Obviously, you should continue to do well in your classes, make progress in your research, assistantship duties, and so on. So let us now narrow it in the qualifier exam. What we have as rules in ME are that students coming in with a bachelor degree have 4 semesters to pass the qualifying exam, and students coming in with a master's have 3 semesters to pass. So you can have different combinations in which you can pass your qualifying exam, but most people try to pass all 3 areas the first time. You are allowed 2 trials to pass the exam. And the exam is only from undergraduate material. So the exam in our department is not intended to test your research skills. It is intended to ensure that all the students entering the PhD program have a good mechanical engineering foundation. So we test in undergraduate subjects. And I know other departments are doing these from graduate courses. In part, we do it in our nuclear engineering program in our department, where the courses are so specific for nuclear engineering that they may not be available at an undergraduate level anyplace else. So that's why the specifics of that exam. and other departments may have written papers based on reading certain publications, or they accumulate points. Maybe you accumulate them from having very good GPAs or publishing journal papers. So those are, different ways in which the departments are trying to assess the fit of a student in their PhD program. For us, this is the way that we decided to move forward. So in ME, since no graduate courses are needed, if that's applicable to your department, there is no need to delay taking the exam. As I said, most students take it in their second semester. Although you can have the third semester, if you're coming with a master's, I would not necessarily recommend waiting until the last semester, because what if you don't pass a subject or two out of the 3 that you have to pass? You don't want to be out of semesters. So try early enough to leave yourself some time to retake the exam if you do not pass an area or 2, or maybe 3. Let's hope that's not the case. We offer 7 areas in mechanical engineering. Again, the qualifier exam for nuclear engineering is slightly different, and I did not get into the specifics of that one because of the courses they have are different than for ME, but the structure is the same. These courses, these areas are mass, dynamics and vibrations, controls, machine design, fluid dynamics, thermodynamics, and heat transfer. And the students will have to select what courses, areas they would like to take the qualifier exam in. Typically, the students do that with the approval of their advisor. And most of the time they do match their current research directions, but not necessarily. Maybe a student wanted to switch, but they have a really good background in heat transfer. They're not maybe doing something with heat transfer these days, but they know that area very well. That's perfectly fine. We do not care which ones of the 3 areas you take. So each one of the areas is a written exam, which lasts for 2 hours, and it consists of 2 problems. And passing grade would be 75% of higher across the 2 problems. In a given semester, a student may pass 1, 2, 3, or none of the areas. Let's assume that you pass the 2, then you have 1 area to pass, and you can schedule that for the next time, and you don't necessarily have to choose the same subject. So let's say you didn't pass thermodynamics. Well, maybe next time you want to change that to fluid dynamics, and because you already, let's say, pass mass and machine design. So obviously you cannot take an area that you pass, but you can take another area, not the one that you did not pass. This strategy we think is very useful for everyone. We used to have a system in which the students, if they didn't pass the qualifier exam with a 75% across all subjects, they will have to retake all the subjects. And that would give extra grading for faculty to do in areas that probably the student was very good. They didn't have to retake that area. It gave more study to do to the student who probably should have spent more time focusing on just the area that the student didn't pass. And it was overall more time consuming and more stressful. This way, again, you pass 2 areas. The second time, you just focus on the last one and you pass that. One thing I definitely recommend is to talk with your advisor in advance and mention, I would very much like to take the qualifier exam in the spring of 2021. May I, prepare whatever reports I have for my GRA and papers and give them to you at such and such time, such that I will spend, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the prelim focusing more on studying for that. I personally think it's worth the time from an advisor's perspective to allow the student to really be very well prepared for that exam so they'll pass, rather than not allowing you to have that little extra time and having to fail and having to do it again. And what if you don't pass all of them that time? So it's a risk on the faculty as well, because if they invest in you and you fail the qualifier exam and you have to leave the program, or you have to leave the university if you already have a master's degree, then it's not a good thing for them to lose a student after investing so much time and effort and resources. So try to talk with your advisor and see what's the best option. We all know that there are deadlines that don't depend on us, but there are also things that we can do to allow for some flexibility in there. We have resources that can help studying for the exam. In AMY, we have an archive of past exams, and the graduate coordinators can point you to that archive, and you can solve as many problems from the past years as you want to. I only want to suggest working by using a bibliography for each area. So typically we provide these to our students. They are available. If none is provided to you and you have a written exam in an area, ask, what are the specific topics that are going to be covered by these math exam, not just, it's math, okay, what in math will be in there. So ask, and usually I'm pretty sure that that kind of information should be made available to the students. So look carefully at the bibliography. Do not study only the type of problems that were given in the past. It's not an indication that something else in that bibliography will not be on your test. As a rule, at least in our department, we take turns writing problems for the qualifier exams. Different people have different styles. Some people retire, new people come in, the problems keep changing, and the flavor keeps changing. The topics in one area are not identical. And again, make sure that you cover everything that's in bibliography. And then you can work as many practice problems as you want. Do not, just struggle alone. Try to ask a faculty if you tried a control problem and you can't get it right. Go and see a professor who teaches control. I'm sure they will help you, understand what's going on. I have on one of the next slides, create some study groups. But what I wanted to mention here before we get there is to start to study early in the semester. Try to have some dedicated time for studying systematically on all the subjects. Start with the one in which you are less secure, and study a little bit every day. The way that our brains work is that if you spread that information across, some time, the brain itself has the time to process that information, even without you thinking about it. Just trying to squeeze everything in a very short amount of time doesn't lead to long-term retention of that kind of information. So you want to understand that and have it in your mind at a deeper level than just knowing what you need to solve a problem in the next week and then it's gone. So try to start early, study a little bit at a time, but study in a very systematic and consistent manner. select the topics with which you are most familiar. I had students with very different backgrounds. I had a PhD student, was excellent. His background was electrical engineering. He never had machine design. You know, he was pretty good at control and math, but he basically didn't have vibrations and a lot of our other areas. And what he did was he simply sat in our undergraduate vibrations class. He offered to be a grader for machine design to, get to work out some problems for himself, pass the qualifier exams, no problems. I had students with bachelors in physics. Again, they were very good this time in, let's say, vibrations and math, had no idea about, controls or something else. And the way to learn is by sitting in those respective undergraduate sessions and talking with faculty who teach those courses. The graduate, even the same course at the graduate level has different flavors and the problems are posed differently. So if you know a higher level of a topic, you still have to go and revisit the undergraduate level if your exam is like ours from undergraduate courses. Trying to see the time here. Okay, we're doing well. Try to study with a couple of friends. It's always good if you can create a small group. In our department this year, we had students with the initiative of announcing, hey, I'm preparing to take a qualifier exam in this topic. Anybody else? Do you want to study together? So that helps with, answering each other's questions and having, keeping up with the study for that subject, keeping up the pace. Now, given the COVID conditions, at least in our department, the qualifier exam went purely online. That obviously changes the traditional format. So make sure that you are very comfortable with the way that the exam is being administered in your department. If you are required to write on paper and take pictures or scan the exam, upload the PDF or email the PDF or whatever it is, try to go through these before, see how much time it takes you. Make sure that, when you're doing this, it's not the first time that you're going to do it at the exam, because you'll have the, stress of the exam on top of everything else, and you don't want to say, oh my gosh, how do I do this? So try to be comfortable with the procedure, whatever that procedure is for your exam ahead of time. Yeah, I really hope people will follow advice. Try to sleep well the night before. Whatever you studied until that night, that's it. I think that you can just take some time and relax and, sleep well and have a clear mind. I can't tell you how many times I heard students saying, when oh my gosh, I just realized after leaving the exam that I got part D wrong. And I don't know why, because I worked that problem before and I knew how to solve it. But, I was so tired because I stayed up until so-and-so in the morning. Try not to do that. It's very tempting to squeeze in a little bit more studying, but try to take time to be well rested at the exam. All right, so that exam passed, but you didn't pass all the areas. So what do you do now? Well, let's hope you passed some of them. The focus only on what's left. If it's one or two subjects, it's going to be much easier. You're already prepared. You went through these, and maybe you missed, just a little bit. You had a 70%, not a 75. So you'll definitely make it this time because you know exactly what you missed. Obviously, the first thing would be to work out the problem, to see what you missed, and ask someone if you're still unclear about, the correct solution. But in the same time, if you realize that you are very far and that's not really an area for yourself, maybe you can switch topics and choose another area to take that exam that you missed the first time. But time doesn't stop for you in terms of your progress with your studies. So this is also the time to start writing some papers. Now you are more advanced in your research and you have to keep up with everything else, GTAs, GRA. So get better and better at planning and managing your time. Maybe you want to get involved in your graduate student council or other student organizations. That would be probably a good time to do so. So finally you passed that, you're done with it, you finished all the coursework. Whew, what a relief. Now you can focus more on your research, right? So now the hardest part of ensuring that you are in the PhD program is gone. You also finished the coursework, no more exams, let's do more research, start write some journal papers. We encourage all of our students, all of our PhD students especially, to write the journal papers. Write some conference papers, ask your advisor to allow you to go to present. It's very important to start networking. If the advisor is there, also ask them to introduce you to their people, because at some point in the very near future, you may need a job. So these are the people who may be of some support to you in your career. So things are going well, semesters have been gone by, and you're almost, let's say, about 65% done with your research. And you estimate, well, I'll probably be ready to finish everything in a year, maybe a year and a half, up to 2 years. That's the best time to start talking with your advisor about defending your prelim. If the advisor doesn't bring up the topic, I would say the first thing is to agree with your advisor on, yes, I think that's a good time. Or maybe the advisor will say, well, let us finish this paper and send it. And then once you have a good set of results on this experiment, then that's the perfect time for us to schedule the prelim. So that may take another, maybe 3 months or 2.5 months, whatever the timeline is. At that time, I would also suggest requesting short meetings with your committee members. People are very busy, so you don't want to set up an hour-long presentation, but you want to say, can I see you for 15 minutes? I'd like to give you a brief progress on my research and ask you about your availability to schedule my prelim. So after that, the best way, I think, to do it is to send a doodle or another type of survey, with specific time slots. People click on them and you identify when everybody is available to schedule your prelim exam. Now, it is not mandatory in our department, but it is strongly encouraged, and I think it happens in maybe 90% of the cases, that at the prelim exam, the student also has a draft of their dissertation. I definitely encourage all of my students to do so. It really helps with writing the final thesis. So you should have everything that you've done with a big, outline for everything that you think will be in there. The sections or the chapters that you have finished should be in there. Those that are still work in progress, you can write that, work in progress, and the ones you haven't started yet, to be completed by such and such deadline. This document will help the committee visit revisit everything that you've done and assess your progress. And also, since this exam in our department is basically intended to present to the committee the proposal of your thesis, gives them enough time to provide input, maybe add another dimension to your research, or maybe tell you to narrow the scope or whatever, but that's the right time. Again, we are here at about 65% of your work. Make sure you schedule things on time. Look at that graduate school. That's, the first slide I was showing. Do you know the requirements? Graduate school wants to have all the requests a minimum of 2 weeks before the defense date. Trying to get to the graduate program director the day before and saying, oh, Dr. Sandra, I really need to schedule this for, it's going to be hard. Okay, so we try to avoid requesting for a ton of exceptions from the graduate school. This student needs to defend in a week. They may not approve that. So please make sure that you know your deadlines, to prepare everything on time and submit all the paperwork. If you need to update your plan of study, let's say a committee member was dropped, another one was added, or you took a course that was not in there and it's relevant, or drop another course because the faculty was on sabbatical that semester, you couldn't take it. All of that has to be done before you schedule the prelim. So make sure you have the time to gather all the signatures on the plan of study, submit the updated plan of study, have that one approved, and then request scheduling the prelim. This takes time, so the planning is very important. Now, in any, this prelim consists of an oral presentation of your dissertation topic proposal with some of the research, as I said, already done. It is typically accompanied by that dissertation draft, but I've been in meetings where students provided a few journal papers they wrote on the topic, which is, in the end going to be included in the dissertation. So something in addition to just the PowerPoint that will give you additional information about the work. This is considered an exam, so it's typical that you have the students committee in there. Some faculty advisors prefer not to have an audience. Most accept the audience while the student presents, but then they invite the audience to leave, of course, during the Q&A session from the committee. So it's different, but in any case, I think there is, let's say, a content to be presented that's very generic. You have to start with, introducing your topic. It's extremely important at this stage to give a strong motivation of the research proposed. So we want to know, why is this important? Why has this been proposed to be done in the way that you propose to do it? Is there nothing out there, or is this much better than, or why do you think it will be much better than what's out there? So make sure that you know why you're doing what you're doing and how is that different, or how does it contribute to the advancement of the state of the art in what you're doing. Think about the fact that even if your research topics for your dissertation coincides to a large degree with what you have to do for your research assistantship, this is not an industry report. This is presenting your scholarly contribution to an academic committee. So rather than solving tasks and getting things implemented, think about the important, the major milestones that are your own contribution to the state of the art, okay? So things can be presented in so many different ways. This is your scholarly activity. We want to know how you advance the scholarly part of your work. So that's a very important aspect. Present the proposed research plan with whatever, uncertainties for the future there might be. That's why you have the committee there to give you advice. Have a very well done literature review. It's very important. It's important from many different perspectives. One of them is the fact that people want to know that you know what you're doing. So you have a very good, deep understanding of what has been done. The second is you want to show that you don't want to, recreate something that has been done before. And the third one is obviously important to show that you can synthesize material done by others. You can identify the missing components and the problems in that area, and you can take them further. This is a very important step in your career as an independent researcher. By the time you finish that dissertation, you should stand alone on your feet, be able to write proposals, be able to do everything that your advisor is doing. So think of yourself as, this is me getting there one step at a time, and I need to gain that experience and that independence as I move along. It's not going to happen just overnight when you defend. The research performed so far and what results you got, and of course, what research needs to be done by the final exam, and what are your expected already. Maybe you have some contributions and the expected contribution by the end of the thesis, and the timeline to the final defense. Students want to be sometimes overzealous, and they're gonna do A and B and C and D and all in 6 months. Well, that's not realistic. That's not probably feasible. And this is not what the committee wants to see. They want to see not that you are covering everything in the universe, because there are other students coming after you that could eventually take on one of those leads. They want to see that you went as deep as you could, and that you're closing up, wrapping up a certain subject that's your own contribution. You don't have to have 20 bullet points. My contributions are. If you have 3 bullet points that are significant, that's a key to your to the value of your dissertation. So do a decent timeline, and take into account the fact that may be obstacles. Who could have thought of the restrictions with COVID and so on. So things happen. Think in the bigger scheme of things what a good timeline is. Be as realistic as you can. One thing that you have to do is to be very clear, and discuss with your advisor, what do I have to do to be able to defend my prelim? I sometimes hear from some students the fact that it looks like it's a moving target. Every time they talk with their advisor, it looks like, oh, I have to do one more thing until I can defend, one more thing until I can defend. And well, that shows that there is not a good communication between the two, because you should be very clear from the beginning, when is the time for you to do that? If I accomplish A, B, and C, can I defend? Yes or no? And that, if you have issues discussing with the advisor, put that in writing in an email, so you'll have the answer. Dr. So-and-so, you did say that, that would be a good time for me to defend. I think I've accomplished these things. What do you say? Shall we schedule this? So be very polite, but try to be very clear from the beginning. Moving targets are not easy for anyone. And yeah, sometimes it happens that you get over something and that doesn't work. So you have to do something else, but try to have a good communication. I can't emphasize how important that is. Don't wait until all the work is done. It's not according to what the graduate school wants, and it doesn't help the student doesn't fit well with the committee either. If the committee feels like, so we are put here just to put a stamp on a paper, where is our input into this work? I would have liked to know about this earlier. What can I tell you now if you're telling me that you have only one tiny item to finish, and I can't switch your research direction right now. So make sure that you keep your committee informed. Again, you don't have to have hour-long meetings, but you have to keep them informed, and schedule these when there is still enough time that significant things can be done to your future research plan. All right, already talked about the literature review and the timeline. The graduate school requires a minimum of 6 months between the prelim and the final defense. I personally think it's short. I recommend a year. People are just trying to be very confident that they have enough, and most of the time they have more than needed. I don't know if I've been in any prelim where people said, I don't think that you have enough material to actually defend your prelim. You know, I've never been in one of those meetings, but I've been in several in which the student was like 95% done. At that point, somebody asked, is this the final defense or, you know, the prelim? So again, you have to find that fine line with the best time. But I strongly recommend a year in advance. It's not a huge amount of time. It allows you to plan for other things in the future, okay? So now you pass the prelim, oh, that finally you can be called a PhD candidate. You have to be active in addressing the comments, concerns, suggestions from your committee. Don't wait on those, discuss them with your advisor, write down a plan for what are you going to do about each one of them, when are you going to accomplish it, send it to the committee and see if they have comments on that, so that you'll be clear that, okay, this is what I need to do, this is what I'm addressing, this is how I'm addressing them. Will that satisfy you? You have that, yes, in writing. They can't claim at the final defense that they wanted you to do something else, okay? So that's kind of, you know, a two-sided thing. It protects you from having to have any unknown or, you know, any uncertain positions at the final defense, while the faculty feels like, yes, you know, the student took that seriously and this is how they're going to address it, and I'm going to check for that and make sure that they did address it. Write more papers. You now have the time. You're, you know, sure that you are one step away from defending your PhD. Make sure that you document everything. Documenting them for journal papers or conference papers basically means you're documenting them for your dissertation. Ask your advisor to give you a more active role if you haven't been involved in session organizers, paper reviews. Many of you will be interested in joining academia. You need something for your service on that resume. You know, I've been active in organizing sessions at ASME. I review conference papers for SAE, whatever, you know, whatever that activity is, it really helps show that you want to get involved in your professional societies. Put your effort in, finalize the dissertation, and meanwhile, start looking for what's out there. Start looking for a job. Don't wait until you deposit your ETD to start looking for a job. That's very late. You have to do it while you are, you know, refining all of these things and start applying and start preparing. I've seen many of my students these days using LinkedIn extensively. So create a very good LinkedIn page, ask your advisor for feedback on your resume, you know, talk with a few professors. Would you be willing to give me references when I apply for a job? You know, prepare everything and start looking. So now you think you're ready to defend. Does your advisor think the same? You have to be on the same page, like with the prelim. Communication is key. Make sure you agree. Prepare a polished dissertation. Don't give your advisor something they have to spend hours checking your grammar and everything. Make sure those things are taken care of, okay? The advisor is not, the advisor doesn't have the duty to correct your spelling. The advisor has to guide you on your technical content and the overall, you know, scholarly accomplishments. So make sure you take care of the things that put your work in the best light. Sometimes the good technical work is lost if the reading is poor. So make sure that that's done. We have a lot of support, I think, at Virginia Tech with services that can help students edit their documents, and could be a paper, could be a thesis, learn how to do that. and ask other peers if you if you need more advice. So prepare that, provide it to your advisor. The advisor will give you comments. At least that's my style. And then that revised version is being sent to the rest of the committee. Do it on time. Some people want to see it, which is what should be done before they agree to schedule the exam. So you think back, this is my desired defense date. Think back 2 weeks, think back another week for, the advisor to give you feedback, think back another week for you to be able to provide the thesis to the advisor. And so that means you pretty much have to have the thesis done a month in advance before you even start asking people, can we schedule this a month from now?
Hey, Kareem, we do have some questions, and I know we're getting close to time, and I wanted to make sure that we ask a couple of these questions for the students. Would you be able to share the slides with the students?
Sure, definitely.
One of the questions is, I know you can appeal the score of the qualification exam. Is there a maximum amount of points you can regain?
In our department, the way that this is requested is in writing. So you basically have to provide the correct solution of the problem for which you request regrading, and to point out where in the solution that you had at the exam thought that you missed points, compared to the correct solution. So we don't have a certain number of points, but chances are if the score was 39%, you probably are not going to get 75%. Unless, you had the solution on the back of the page and the professor didn't see that part. I mean, that can happen also, I think that the last page was not graded, or you can do that in writing, and we request the approval of the advisor to submit the request for regrading.
Thank you. Another question we have is, how do you qualify the 65% research progress for the prelims? Should we have papers published or papers submitted count as well? Usually papers take time to be published both in the conference and journals. Not to mention that sometimes you have to be lucky with the reviewers, especially for publishing in high impact conferences and journals.
Correct. So that is an estimate of the work done, an estimate of the total work that you feel has to be done to accomplish the dissertation. I know it's the timing for the papers. I would say conferences, it's a little bit easier because they have a deadline. They have to approve or decline them by a certain deadline. With the journals, it's more difficult. But it's not a matter of having X journal papers published or X conference papers. It's a matter of, have you reached that point in the work that you are supposed to do, where you're, past half of it, but not that far that you're ready to finish in the next 6 months.
And thank you. Another question is, what's the ideal time in months before graduation that we should start looking for a postdoc position?
So typically positions in academia are primarily listed in the fall. Now many universities started listing them a little bit earlier to catch a lot of people with offers before other universities do so. So I would say the fall semester, regardless of when you plan on graduating, would be the best to start looking. So let's say you plan on finishing next spring, this would be the perfect time now to look for those positions. You plan to finish next winter, you still should start looking now, because many universities are flexible in allowing a start date later. You can say, I will need another semester to finish my PhD, but I see that you have this position. Is it possible for me to start a few months later? They may be able to do that. So I would say, from my experience, August, September, October, November are the best months of the year to start looking for positions in academia as postdocs or faculty.
Okay. I know you're probably wrapping up your presentation, but I don't have any other questions in the chat box.
Well, I'm wrapping this as well. So I think you'll reach this point. You've successfully defended your PhD. You did it. Now you are going to address the comments that you have, submit the ETD in 2 weeks, send more job applications, finish that last paper, please. That last paper takes forever if you don't finish it before you leave Virginia Tech. And I'm telling you, no matter how much you think, oh, I'm going to work on this, no matter, it takes time. It takes time because you'll have a new job, a new situation, and you finish the paper. Your advisor will be appreciating that. And with that, I guess, congratulations. Now you got your first job interview. How will you prepare for that? So I guess that will probably be the topic of another presentation, maybe another colleague of mine or somebody, if that's a topic of interest. It's an important step in your career. As far as from my personal wish to you is, to wish all of you good luck in every step in your academic, professional career, as well as personal life, because they all go hand in hand. You should move on in life with all of them. And I wish all of you to be extremely successful in everything. And please don't hesitate to send me an email if you have other questions. I will provide the slides. Again, it has been a pleasure to be invited to share a few of my thoughts on this.
Well, we want to say thank you so much, and people are listening. Thank you in the chat box as well. It's a great opportunity to have faculty to have a casual conversation about these important topics. Again, thank you, and thank you students for coming, and I will make sure you get the names of the students that signed up so you can send the PowerPoint presentation to them. Again, thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate everyone. So thank you.
Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again. Have a good day, everyone.